Okay. I'm waiting for my spinny. Going live. You're live! Hooray! I am live. That's true. But it's telling me it's not receiving enough information to maintain smooth streaming. So if you have any problems seeing what you can see, let me know in the chat. But I'll find out in about 32 seconds time, as we were discussing in the chat beforehand. There seems to be about 16 seconds delay. Maybe 16 seconds was two-way, actually, because I was measuring it by watching the preview window, waving my hand, and then seeing how long it took to turn up in the display. But this is my last daytime, weekday, streaming. So thank you for being here. We've had a lot of fun along the way. I know we've done a lot of JavaScript, one way and another, and we are doing some C++ today. This is my third part of the path tracer. And as you say, let's trace some paths. So yesterday I was meant to do some streaming, but I was feeling a bit under the weather. I am much better today. As you can probably hear, I've got a bit of a in my throat. But I'm feeling much more with it. But I did, on the other plus side, finish a big jigsaw, which was more satisfying than I thought it was going to be. Some pictures of it are on Twitter. I know, Andreas, you were looking at it as well. So today, what I'd like to do is some things that have been annoying me with the path tracer that I think would be more broadly applicable than me farting around with the mathsy sphere intersection type stuff that we've been doing, and are more sort of generally practicable for people working in C++, at least the way that I do things. So here you can see the story so far. We are writing a path tracer, which is a generalized ray tracer of a sort. If I'm getting that slightly wrong, please don't you correct me, but I'm using the words sort of very vaguely. It's very grainy, as you can see. And it's a few hundred lines of code, and my intention is to use this as part of a talk that I might give at some point about the different ways you can write things in C++. So that is the image we are currently generating, and let me just close that, with a whole bunch of code. Since the last time, those who've been following me along, yeah, the spheres look great now, right? It's still very grainy. I imagine that the codec, the video codec, will smooth out some of the more graininess in the for those watching on the YouTube stream. So since the last time we spoke, I couldn't help myself. I know I said I wasn't going to do it, but I added a relatively straightforward, to my mind, threading model. So if I were to now run this in release mode, otherwise we'll be here all day. So I'm just going to build and run that while we're talking. It'll use multi-threading in a way that made sense to me, but I do this a lot. And I was discussing with Jason Turner of CPP++ Weekly fame, and he was saying there are, it was about code smells. I think if anyone's following him on Twitter, you may have seen him tweet about his code smell thing that he's trying to sort of like gather information on, and I said that shared pointer was a code smell, as I believed shared pointer almost always is a code smell. Let's just do git grep shared. No shared pointers in my code right now. It's not to say that they're not right in some cases, and I can talk about that forever, but most of the time I've seen them being overused, and if I see them in a new code base, I'll immediately have to go, why is that here, and see if it's the right thing. Other people said like mutex was a code smell, and I was immediately like, what are you talking about? How else can you do threading? And there was some conversation backwards and forwards. So at the moment, that's exactly what I'm doing in my threading code here. I have effectively I made a thread safe queue, which has like little tiles of the screen that get done, and then I have n threads, where n is the number of CPUs that I have available, and those n threads each pick off a piece of work, do a small tile of the screen, plonk it out, and then say, is there more work to do? And that means that the work gets spread around evenly across the CPU cores. I might go and try using futures just to see how that comes out, or async tasks or something like that. That's interesting to me, but as you can see, it's really slow right now, mainly because my computer is sort of overwhelmed with all of the other stuff that it's doing. Oh, and if I could type, it would help. So you can see that currently we're using all the CPUs, and we also have OBS and other things, the things that are doing the live streaming, taking up CPU. Oh, okay. I think probably my connection is a bit dodgy. Let me see. Okay, my system thinks it's still streaming. I'm going to wait this out for a second and see if we get better. Oh, I wonder. Hang on. Let me kill the path tracer and see if it recovers. I'm going to look back in the chat. yeah, I'm just writing in the chat there that I think I'm probably oversubscribing my CPU. I am going to stop the render and see if this suddenly gives us back... oh, error, try again. Okay, let me see. Are we back? We are apparently still streaming here on my setup. Can any of you see me right now? I am going to... It says it's waiting for me. Darn it. Okay, I'm going to reconnect. If you can see any of this, I'm sorry. So we're going to... Okay, I am hoping this will come back shortly. Okay, I'm streaming now, so I'm hoping you can hear me. If you can hear me now and see me now, then say something and say that you saw me ask you. Yeah, I did jinx it. Okay. So the threading stuff is all well and good, but really opens up something that I need to do, which is currently everything is hard coded. So you can see here. Oh, we've still got. Have I? Oh, that's new. Oh, I upgraded the IDE just before. I just literally before starting. This is something that the Java IDE version has had forever, which is like having little tags for the parameter names. So that's new. Wow, that's cool. And your intentional interruption did not... Oh, golly. That's weird. How bizarre. Anyway, we're back, and I think we can see that right now it's not a good idea to use all the CPU cores to do the work. So ideally, we'd make that configurable, right? And maybe have it as a configuration option. And that's, first and foremost, before we go anywhere at all, I'm going to get rid of this and make that... let's go and get hardware concurrency and make that into a variable. Both of those. And we're going to call this concurrency, or num CPUs. And make it auto. Thank you. And then actually what we're going to do is, for now, 1, comment that out. Hooray. 1U. Stop the complaint early on. All right. So, I wasn't going to plan on use OpenMP. I really want to use things that are part of the standard of C++ wherever I can. Using extensions and things is great, but it's not like the intention of my code here. I'm trying to show the way that C++, without too much, without going off piste too much. I'm even like avoiding trying to use things like compiler intrinsics where I can. Yeah, so OpenMP does some of this stuff for you behind the scenes, but it would be cool to use like standard thingamajigs. Anyway, we now are using 1 CPU, at least for now, so this will stop it from like kicking you all off when I actually run the program. So clearly 1920 by 1080 was what I generated that picture at, which is lovely, but far too big, right? So let me just, for now, whack a 0 off the end of both of those, and then with the 1 CPU core, run this, and see what happens, and make sure we're back where we started, and you know we're in a good situation. But what I first want to do is make these all configurable from the command line, and that means adding a command line parser. And like I was saying before, this thing is all about this stream. My intention is to sort of show you some more generally applicable C++ things, and so I want to add a command line parser. And I want to show you how I use that, how I would add that using the Conan package management system that I'm using, and we'll add in a command line parser. And today I've picked Phil Nash's Clara command line parser because it's one that I know works pretty well. But first of all, I want to make sure we've done no harm, sort of Hippocratic oath of compilation. We don't need quite as much terminal as we need IDE right there, so I'm going to change the separation. Okie dokie, bin image.ppm. Creating a render farm. So funny you should say that, Zane. When I wrote this for Rust, I actually was able to use my company's internal job submission system, and I threw out millions of the things, and it was quite a lot of fun to combine all the results. And I would like to do something like that, yes. Okay, so we know we're definitely affecting it because there it is in blurry 192 by 108 view, but you know, it took, I don't know how long. I should probably print out how long it took to run. That would be a cool thing to add to it so that we can see how fast or otherwise we're running things. All right, so command line parsers. I'm using Conan, as I've said before, and hopefully I know a couple of you have pulled down the code and it sort of just worked. As long as you have Conan somewhere on your command line command line path so that you can type Conan, it pretty much should just work out of the box. You can donate 2 Raspberry Pis. Yeah, I have a whole set of aging hardware around my house, my kids' computers, and I've got like 3 or 4 laptops that I've collected over the years. I've got a server in the basement which currently isn't responding to me, and I should go and fix out that. Yeah, okay, that's a different machine. Anyway, there are a whole bunch of things. It would be fun to like get a cluster of these things going, but that's so out of scope. So anyway, what I want to do is add in Clara. So I'm going to do Conan search, and I'm going to use Conan Center. So Conan Center is the name of the repository, and it's like the default publicly accessible, blessed by the Conan folks center package repository. And so I'm just going to search for star Clara. Anything in mentioning the word Clara, and hope no. Okay, so there's nothing matching Clara. Is it case sensitive? No. Okay, so that's a shame. Oops, that's not what I meant. And you knew it, Chrome. I want to Control N. There we go. So let's go Clara Conan. I know that it's supported because I know that it's actually something that Clara itself now supports. So Clara, that's the BinCrafters one. And 115, I don't know where that is. Let's go to the actual Clara repository. Not Clara Conan, there's actually a person called that. That's funny. So we're going to go to Clara GitHub. See, my memory was that Phil actually, or whoever is supporting Clara these days, now actually has a package for this. Let's have a look. Is there a Conan package here? Conan? No. All right. So it's in the BinCrafters one by the looks of it. Our latest release on here is 115, and we saw that on BinCrafters. So BinCrafters is like a second tier. Second tier is probably not the right word, but like it's still very official. But let's just it's sort of volunteer updated. So I'm going to search, and I think I've got BinCrafters on here. No remotes. Okay, so Conan remote list. What do I have defined? Just Conan Center. Okay, now I think, if I remember rightly, I am adding a Conan repository already. Let's have a look at my Conan file. And I require catch 2. And I'm getting catch 2 from this remote here. Yes. So we need to add the BinCrafters remote. Now, as it happens, this line in here only affects the CMake project, whereas this is a global repository. So I'm actually going to add the BinCrafters as a remote repository globally. So let's search for BinCrafters Conan. That seems to be the right thing to do. Public Conan, and we should be able to see in here there's some kind of, oh dear, package name. We're looking for Clara, right? Clara BinCrafters. Yeah, that's where we just were. And it's really not obvious how to do this. This is an unfortunate. So I'm going to click that 115 stable because we know that's what we want. And it tells me there is the reference, sure. But where is the actual set me up? Okay. Oh, it is part of the public Conan repository. Okay, but right. Conan remote add BinCrafters that. Okay, Conan search -r BinCrafters Clara. Lowercase Clara? Haha. Okay, we're getting there. So that's me set it up globally. But what I want to make sure is that nobody has to do any extra steps if they git clone my repository. So I'm actually going to add it as part of the build here, the BinCrafters, as that too. So now when CMake, or rather when Conan runs as part of the CMake stuff, that will add the BinCrafters repository in and make it available to the Conan file. And now I should just be able to do Clara /115 at BinCrafters /stable here. Now I'm just going to build that, and I shouldn't have to touch anything. Yes, look, so adding catch2, adding BinCrafters, remote repository. Oh, that's a shame, it's a typo. And okay, everything seems to have just worked, which is a good step. So now if I were to try and include Clara, you might think it would work, but that's not actually the case. What I want to do now, or what I have to do now, is add it as a dependency. Now, the way that CMake works is that it won't make the include paths of a library available unless you link against that library. Now, as it happens, it's header only, if I remember rightly, but I'm going to add it here. And the way that I need to do that is Conan_pkg : Clara. So now I'm saying that I link against that library, and it should still just work, and nothing new should happen. But now my PT3Ways application has access to Clara. Hurrah! So this file is getting unwieldy and large. But it's still my sort of sketching space for the ultimate goal of actually having something to talk about rather than anything else. So we're now going to include Clara. Now actually I'm about to break my style. My style typically is to have system includes as the very last thing I include, and then sort of like third-party packages in between those and my own. Now I would normally use quotes for all of these, but the IDE just loves to fight me on that. So I would usually quotes for my own projects, angle brackets for external dependencies. That's my personal taste for that. So we're going to do Clara, and hopefully, is it just Clara.hpp? Yes, it is Clara.hpp. Okay, and then, because I can't remember how to use Clara, let's go back to this and go and have a look at and copy paste the how-to. There we go, lovely. Using namespace Clara, autocli equals that. That sounds about right, and then that. Perfect. I'm going to take that whole lot, including the explanatory test, and I'm going to paste it in about here. Wonderful. And I will... Okay, so the array output takes a width and a height. Now, those are currently in variables. Currently are passed as manifest constants here. Now, so we want to be able to pass them to this. So I need to give it an out parameter. That's the way Clara works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that into a width. Make it auto, thank you. Oops. And then height. Oh, my computer is really struggling now. And V. Height. I is a very bad choice there, but thank you all the same. And these two, I think it is currently reparsing all of that. So I'm going to put these up here. Now I'm not really like the fact that I have to out variable those separately and then re-import them over here, but we'll take it for now. So we've got width, height, and oh, that's useful. This again is new. This ampersand, that shows me that it's taking it by ref. Interesting. That will become extremely useful. All right, now let's get rid of the explanatory test. And let's reformat that so it doesn't look horrible. Oh, seriously. All right, well, we'll deal with that later. So obviously we're going to need to get argc and const char star argv, which is just one of those things you learn and remember. So width and height, we now can... I'm going to be fighting the reformatter on this. Left, right, and center, aren't I? So I think the way we do is we do this to add in more options. So we're going to do height, and then we're going to give it dash h and height, and we're going to replace that. It's funny that it already had a width and a height in the example, right? Oh, somewhere in here I can get the selection to just be... Oh, I might as well just click it, it'd be quicker. Output image width. That syntax, so that is a highlight that the IDE is giving. So likewise, that hint. So you can see the ampersand colon and the hint colon here. Those are not part of the text. I can't select those. My cursor just goes past them. That's not actually something that's part of it. The IDE is showing it as an annotation in the IDE to tell me what the name of that parameter is. And all it's telling me about width here is it's taken by reference. So that shows me that I am taking a non-const reference. I bet you for const ref it wouldn't tell me, but it's sort of calling out, hey, this is mutated potentially by the argument. Now I think I can turn those off. This IDE is JetBrains' Sea Lion, for those asking. So that's not part of the code. In fact, I can probably turn that off pretty straightforwardly, but I've just upgraded the IDE. This seems to be a new thing that's in. And I've used it normally, so if I show you my compiler, I haven't got Compiler Explorer open right now, but in the other JetBrains IDEs, they have had this forever. It's like, you know, it's kind of a useful thing. Now, it does mean that like stuff like formatting to a certain column is more annoying because obviously these things take up column space, description, hint, and ampersand colon. So although this looks like it's gone beyond my 80 column restriction or 100 column, whatever I've got it set to, it hasn't. It's just been padded out by that, and I'm on the fence about that. So I'm testing it out to see if I like it. Output image height. Okay, and then stud cr. We're not gonna put stud endl here because, you know, I would get in trouble with Jason, not Jason Turner, that is, and then I would get in trouble with myself for not using a single character here just because it annoys me. And stud cr does indeed come from IOStream. Yes, so we can include that, please. Thank you. We can join those. Let's reformat the whole file. The OR character has gone up here, which I don't like. I need to configure the... yes. Hey, Terrace. Yeah, we're adding command line parsing in now, which is less about imaging and image stuffs, but I'd like to sort of show you how I add in new libraries and stuff. So now we've actually got, width and height. Haha. Get rid of those. So now we can configure, in theory, the width and height. And I'm going to put it back in debug mode for now. And see what we get. Now, these are options, they're not required arguments. So it should still work, and it should be 192 by 108. Okay, so it didn't actually fail, which is the main thing. Let me just run that directly and run with it -- help. I think I have to do something special to get the help to work. Yeah. Unrecognized token. I think you just have to add a help thing. Let's go and have a look at the examples. Arg. Help parser, which just takes a boolean. Yeah, okay, so we need bool is help or something like that. Bool help equals false. I guess that could be auto just to sort of stick with it. Or help. If not result, then that. If help exit 0. That needs to be a lowercase h, Matt. So someone was asking me about my new job. I haven't started it yet. That's why I'm doing this. I'm starting it on Monday. So this is kind of my last stream, unfortunately. At least during the day. Excuse me. All right, I'm sure I saw a better example than this to steal from. I think I just see out the actual thing itself. Something like this, usage, and then CLI. Now, do I need a new line after it? I don't think I do. Let's find out. Oh, that's weird, Luca. Yeah, we didn't see anything from you. Oh, I've got it on top chat here. I'm going to put it onto live chat, as if that makes any difference. It seems to be about the same. No, weird, we didn't see that. Okay. Oh, I'm glad. Other people pass tracing and... Oh, cool. Congratulations, Terrace Python. Placement offer for an embedded systems company for a year out. That should be a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot of interesting things there. All right. Okay, apparently I don't have to put the word usage and I don't have to put a new line afterwards either. So let's just get rid of both of those. Apply, build. Oh, that's now, unfortunately, Clara is as header only, so it seems to have added quite a lot of time into the build, which is unfortunate. Okay, there we are. We've got PT3 ways, and I'm now going to put it back to 1920 by 1080. And then instead of that, oh, why does that not work? I think my my windowing environment steals one of the key presses I'm used to pressing. So normally I would just hit a button to get this up. So in debug, I'm going to pass height. What are we going to do? Let's do 128, width 96. That should give us something which is fast enough to run in debug. So let's just run that and see what we get. And remember, right now we're still like using hackily a single CPU core. And hopefully we will actually get some results in a timely fashion-ish. Oh, top chat is different only if you had the donations there, which I do not. Thank you, Luca. I have no idea. I just fiddle with the settings. I think when we were having a spam problem that time, I think in order to see it, I had to turn it on to live chat. But maybe that's just me. Okay. All right. Okay. So 8% of the way through. Apparently, it's still super slow in debug, but we know that, right? Debug is very slow, and in fact, I don't even have the address sanitizer and things on, which will make it even slower. My general theory is that I tend to turn on all the options for debug. I have O0. I don't even have OG on. I've had too many times where the compiler has generated optimizations that meant I couldn't afterwards debug my code properly. So O0, and I tend to have the address sanitizer on. I have the undefined behavior sanitizer. We haven't enabled all of those for this yet. And then in release, I have all that turned off. Link time code generation on O3. And it makes a heck of a difference, as you can see. Okay, I'm going to stop that. So let's add some other features. Let, for example, us add... there's a number of like parameters that are just sort of hard-coded in here. I've got some field of view things. So those are more part of the scene. I don't want to make those configurable. But we do have some magic constants here like Russian roulette, samples per pixel. I've got this diffuse-only mode. Yeah, that's a really useful thing. So I'm going to... That's currently a massive, horrible global. And for now, I'm going to continue for it to be a massive, horrible global. Never use this, of course. What I should really do is wrap the radiance function and the render function in an object, and then it can be a property of the object. But right now, I just want to get this working. So I'm going to add another one here, which is opt on diffuse only. And we're going to say... and this takes, what is this? Oh, hint. Diffuse only? Is that, or is that what it, oh no, that's the name of the parameter. I guess it doesn't take a parameter if it's a bool. So we're just going to have dash dash diffuse only. All right. I'll show you what diffuse only does. It makes it go really, really quick, which is the point of it. While I was playing around with camera stuff, oh, expected one of those before opt. What you say? Oh, it needs an or on the end. Ugh. Oh, and it's going to put it all on one line. I might have to fiddle with the settings in a second. I really don't like the way that's going. Hang on, I pressed the wrong button. Okie dokie. Did I try Meson yet? I haven't really tried Meson, no. I looked at it briefly, but it's just another build system, and I don't get excited about build systems. My favourite build system is Make, which works perfectly well for my use cases. But I've begrudgingly adopted CMake as it seems to become more standard. All right. Oh, and I didn't even supply the flag here. Sorry, this is what happens when my default keys don't actually work. So dash dash diffuse only. So this should render at turbo speed now. Indeed it does. And now if I actually look at that, and this is going to be in CMake debug, we get, hooray! Oh, and I got width and height the wrong way round, didn't I? Let's have a look at my command line parameters again. And the key press that I want to press still doesn't work. Height 128, yeah. 96, 128. We've got it wrong around, but okay, diffuse only, as you can see, just literally does first pass diffuse. So that allows me to play around with camera settings and stuff and get a really, really fast amount of feedback without, without hacking too many other things. Okay, so that definitely needs to be changed. This is another parameter, which is, again, it's more to do with the rendering than it is, and the number of samples per pixels. These are obvious candidates to also be made into command line. But the one we want to do right now is the number of CPUs we're going to use. So how are we going to do that? Well, I think we will default that to 1, right? Now that is passed, that can be passed in. Samples per pixel is passed in. We're going to say int num CPUs, and then our num CPUs down here. Actually, I think we should make that unsigned, as everything else is expecting it to be unsigned. You're watching, oh! Watching me on telly, that's weird. Num CPUs, okay, so that goes away. And down here, we need to pass in num CPUs. I think I will make this samples per pixel a flag as well. So let's go and steal samples per pixel, which can no longer be const expr, obviously. So we're just going to make this auto samples per pixel, and as it's no longer a giant, and int num CPUs equals 1. Samples per pixel equals 40. I'm going to make that lowercase because it's a variable now and not like some giant global constant. And now we're going to add these ops as well. So we're going to have num CPUs, num CPUs, num CPUs. Oh, I should stick to my convention here. And then we're going to give that a description of... oh, we didn't give this one a description. We should give it a description, shouldn't we? So this is perform diffuse light... it's not even diffuse lighting only, yeah. Super quick preview. And I'm going to call it preview, actually. Dash dash preview here. And then we can later on decide that preview does something slightly different. And then we're going to... So number of CPUs... to use 0 for all. So we'll make 0 be magic and special. Oh, and it needs an OR on the end. And that looks good enough, I suppose. And then samples per pixel. Opt. Samples per pixel. Samples. Or SPP, I think, is number of samples per pixel. Or that. Okay. That seemed... And you can see, like, when it couldn't parse, when the IDE couldn't parse the code there because I'd made such a pig's ear of writing it, that all of the description tags all vanished because it could no longer make sense anymore. If Clara is lighter than boost PO, I have no idea. I tend to avoid Boost. It's a great library, but it does bring in an awful lot of things, and so I typically like to pick out small parts of things. Now, things like the Boost circular buffer is brilliant, but I tend to avoid bringing it into projects until I have a really clear use case for something that it provides, and uniquely so. Okay, so that's samples per pixel, number SPP. What else have we got going on here? I think that's everything I wanted to do, right? Oh, I suppose I should put samples here as like the hint of the thing. All right. Oh, num CPUs, we actually have to go and use it, don't we? I was passing that through. Oh, I think it will just use it now. Yeah, we were passing... I've forgotten that we were actually doing the right thing here. Oh, but I've said 0 will mean all of them, didn't I? So, excuse me. After we've parsed all that nonsense out, we'll do a little bit of if num CPUs is equal to 0, num CPUs equals stood thread hardware concurrency there. And then I'm going to make this obviously auto like everything else is, and that can be unsigned because then it will actually work. Reformat the world. Apparently it wants me to have that on a separate line. If you're going to put it on a separate line, then I will put the braces around it. I'm not a giant fan of like always wrapping things in braces because I forever reformat my code, and so if there was a go to fail style problem in the code, I would see it pretty quickly. Plus, compilers these days warn if you have like suspiciously indented code. Let me show you what I mean actually. So let me put that back to how it was before. Yeah. And run it. Build it at least, I should say. Do I not use the C++ 2a standard flag? Not with the compiler I've got here. This is GCC 8, so it doesn't have that flag. Or if it does, it's very... yeah, it does actually have that flag. What am I talking about? But it's still not something I'm currently using, no. There's a very suspicious... I can see you do a decal type on the lambda for your unique pointer to get lambda in place now with decal type. Great. That's... Yeah, I don't have the 2a flag on, but that's a really good steer. Thank you. So then if I were to do something like afterwards and badly indent num CPUs equals 12, hopefully, this is where I'll be shown to be wrong, the compiler will complain because it has dodgy looking indentation. So there we go. So this if clause does not guard the if, oh no. So that's why I'm not as I know a lot of people are like no, always put the braces in. I'm not. I will do here though, because why not? Okay, so that should give us back what we want. And let's go back to our release build and see what I've got in here. That key press, one day I will fix the ID. Oh, I see. I didn't realize that this was... Oh, that's a shame. These options here are not per configuration. I can add one, but so let's do num CPUs 3. That should give us enough CPUs to do all of the other things. All right, wish me luck. So this is still going to be a tiny thing, and I think we've got preview. Oh, I renamed preview, didn't I, to diffuse only? Well, let's check that our error parsing works, right? Command line error handling, not error parsing. I don't know, sorry, I'm still not quite with it apparently. Yeah, unrecognized token. That's not the most useful error message, thank you, Clara, but I get it. So let's fix that by still not pressing the key press that my muscle memory wants me to press, but instead make this -- preview. Let's just apply that and close it, because what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to rename diffuse only to preview, because I think that makes more sense. There we go. Now we can run. So I'm running with -J4 for the build. That seems to be okay to not kick you off here. Hey, Alexander. What was that? Get annoyed. Yeah, Chromium code, system headers first and local. Yeah, I agree with that, but it's just what you're used to. Consistency is more important to me than anything else. There are arguments for a lot of these things, reasonable arguments. Oh, that was fast, wasn't it? Both release and that. Let's just make sure that we have still got an image that makes sense. Release. Yep. Oh, isn't it beautiful? So why don't we turn off preview and make sure we haven't broken that. So bye-bye to you. Okay. Run. And then, gosh, it's so much slower, isn't it, when it's running? Oh, there was another change I made. I should tell you about the other change that I made. Since the last stream, that is. Let's just bring up the image again. Hooray, lovely grainy picture. Excellent. So the other change that I made, as well as the threading, which we'll come back to, was that after the initial bounce, so if you recall, we fire a ray down the camera let eye thing. I've added a field of view thing in there, and I must admit there, a number of people have asked me if I have a reference for this and whether I'm just doing it off the top of my head. I obviously have small point that I was showing you, but until after the last streaming session, it was mostly out of my head from memory. But I have actually got this book, Realistic Ray Tracing, which I remember I had, and I've picked it off of the shelf in the other room. And from this, I stole the field of view perturbation stroke randomness. So what we do with that is that we also, for each ray going through the camera, we kind of perturb it based on the size of a sort of virtual what do they call it, circle of confusion for that particular point, and that gives a certain amount of control to how blurry or otherwise things will be. And then it just falls out because, you know, we're doing multi-sampling anyway. It means, in fact, let me just show you. This is something I can change as I go. So the aperture, let's make the pinhole camera. Well, it's not a pinhole camera now, so I'm just going to change this. Remember, I'm doing this. I'm just going to hack, and if I bring that up here. So this is we're waiting for it to come through. I know it's tiny. Excuse me. That's so cool, Andreas. You said that he dropped his the scene into his render and got something that looks pretty much the same. So we'll see what it looks like with a non-pinhole camera, and you probably can't tell because the image is so small right now that that blurriness won't actually make any difference. So that was one of the changes I made. Oh yeah, okay. My aperture is perhaps that's too blurry. Right, this is like me without my contact lenses in. Yeah, too blurry. All right, what did I make the aperture size? 0.5? Oh, 0.05. All right, well, you can trust me, I'm sure, that I can make it a non-pinhole. And I'm not actually 100% sure that what they've got in the book is right, you know, because the focal distance is something else that needs to be fiddled with. So that's another thing. But the second thing that I changed was, instead of, on the first hit, just picking a random direction in the unit hemisphere and then firing from there, I sample a range of angles, bounce angles. So there is, we have the number of samples, well, square root of the number of samples we're going to do, and we're going to basically go for I equals 0 to square root of samples, for u equals 0 to samples, v equals 0 to samples, and I pick the uvth conic slice of that hemisphere. I don't even know if it's conic, actually. It's square sides, and it's got a cap of a sphere on the end of it, whatever that shape is. So it's not even a frustum because that's got a square end. That shape, but we then randomize within that. So I'm sampling randomly, but but I'm giving it a fair chance of finding all possible angles around. So that slows things down. We do a lot of bounces on that first hit. Who wrote the book was the question. It is by Peter Shirley and R. Keith Morley. And it's okay. It's got a full C++ implementation of a ray tracer. It's very old school C++, so it's, you know, it's everything you'd expect with, you know, like constructors that have some things initialized in the colon initializer list and a whole bunch of stuff that happens inside the constructor as well. Stuff like that. But it works pretty much well enough. So anyway, so that was one change I made, is to sample, and the thing that gives us is slightly more evenness and less sensitivity to the random number generator, which is cool because actually I changed around the random number generator and I could see all sorts of horrible artifacts. So we do need a somewhat decent random number generator for this to work. I think we're still using the PR, where is it, the Mersenne twisted thingamajig. Where is it? Where does the RNG get into this? Tiles and things and tile Q, no, empty. Yeah, we're using the Mersenne twister here, and we're instantiating one for every pixel, which is obviously not necessarily the best thing to be doing, but it's working well enough. And if I swap it out for a less good random number generator, the results are markedly worse. It is faster though. Oh, you're also using something based on Peter Shelley. Fantastic. That's great. So that was the second change. I then made a math change. So I don't want to get too much into the maths in this particular talk, because I really wanted to get into like the Conan stuff, and then we're going to look at the future stuff. But previously I was in line here constructing the hemisphere and sampling it, and now I've got a better way of doing that, I think, where I have extracted an orthonormal basis class, which looks like this. This is essentially an axis. So this is an X, a Y, and a Z that represent an axis in the world. And it's not necessarily, X is not 1, 0, 0, Y is not 0, 1, 0, and Z is not 0, 0, 1. There can be any three axes, any three unit vectors, as long as they're all at 90 degrees to each other in a either left or right-handed way. I think it's right-handed way. So when I hit the sphere and I get its normal, I use that as the Z, and then I say, well, I don't actually care what the X and the Y are, as long as they are both at right angles to that Z. So I can construct an orthonormal basis from that. And that's what I was doing before, but it turns out this orthonormal basis is useful in other places. And when we start doing things like bump mapping and textures like that, there's some cool things to do with ONBs. But anyway, it is what it is. Cool. Yes, right. I think this is worth checking in. So I'm going to meld this. Bye, Tarius. Oh, a rain marching engine. Excellent. That is so cool. Yeah, the best way to learn any of this stuff is to just do it. And with graphic stuff, the reward is so high if you get it right. I mean, obviously, the reward can be a black screen and much head scratching. But yeah, this is so it's sort of a similar story. While I was at a sort of high school age, 15, 16, a friend and I were working on a 3D game, and we had to learn so much maths. And I remember we got our maths teacher to help us with some of the three-dimensional polar coordinates that we needed, and some of the transforms that we were doing to get like a tank game that was in 3D, and that was a lot of fun. So it's a great motivator to learn. Yeah, we're not doing any bump mapping. No. I just meant if we do bump mapping. I'm trying my best not to get involved in these things. We still don't actually have materials, right? At the moment, everything is just diffuse, and it has a colour and an emissivity. And I really want to get into that, but I also don't want to get too caught up in it. So anyway, let's just look at what we've got here. We added the BinCrafters repository, and we said we're going to link with Clara, and we said we depend upon Clara as well as Catch 2. Wonderful. And then in main, we said we're including Clara. We now include IOStream. Well, how are we outputting before if we weren't including IOStream? Did we just not include? Was I being naughty and relying on it being there? I bet you I was. I'm using printf. How quaint. Yeah, I'm using printf to print out the progress, mainly because I know how to do a two decimal place floating point number without too much trouble, whereas with streams, I mean, now we've got Conan set up, we can bring in FMT, which is awesome and understandable, so I might move to that, but that's for another time. And then we changed the way threads work, and we added a load of configuration options. I love it. This is good. If any one of you is following along in the chat and you want to sort of see, I would recommend you do a git pull and then make sure it just works for you. If it doesn't, let me know in the chat and we'll try and fix it. So this is add Clara, command line parser, make things configurable. Hurrah! Okay, we have a continuous integration service that's going to run and check to make sure I haven't done anything too daft. Yes, I will get caught up in it at some point. See, I'm going to have to work out when I'm going to do this. This is so much fun. But usually I have to wait till the house is empty so I don't feel like a complete fool talking to myself. So our evenings might work. Obviously, I know that means a lot of you wouldn't necessarily be able to make this live. But I would like to keep on doing this. It's fun to explore this world. Yes. So, right, the meat of it. And I have about an hour, or just under an hour, 45 minutes before I promised my wife I would go out to lunch with her for my last tearful day of being an unemployed layabout. So we're going to see what we can do about the threading. Let me show you what I have so far. So what I did is I made a little function that renders a single pixel. And I made that function by making a lambda. So this is in the render function. So this render function is called exactly once. And so this is like a local function. which actually you can write in GCC. GCC supports writing a function within a function. It's not standard, but it's kind of fun. But this is the right way of doing it. Okay, so we have renderpixel here, and it does all the things we know we need to do, which is to sit there and sample many times, ask the camera to make us a ray. That was another extraction I did. And then say, hey, call radiance and say, hey, you're at depth 0, here's a random number generator, here's a ray, what the heck color is this? And then we add it into our color, and then at the end we return 1 over samples per pixel. Now, there are better ways of doing this, I've learned since, by looking at some friend's code who's also, do this kind of thing, but we'll get into that another time. I keep saying that, don't I? And then this down here from line 97 through line 161 is my little implementation of a work queue, thread-safe work queue. So we might as well walk through this, because this was the kind of thing that I take for granted, maybe because I've just spent too much time doing this, and I tend to reach for mutex, and I tend to reach for shared data structures, but there are other ways of doing it now. So we're going to be joining this. Oh, unable to find Clara 115 BinCrafters stable in remotes. That is interesting. So Andreas, can you check the output of your, if you've got your IDE up, can you check the output if you go to Control Shift A, or whatever you get from like your CMake, if you reload CMake. Oh, come on. Somewhere in here is the CMake. There's CMake. Somewhere in here, I would like it to see something which looks like that, where it's saying adding catch to remote repository. Oh gosh, sorry. Come back. And then this one also said adding BinCrafters remote repository. Can you check to see if it says that in yours? And what I'm going to do on mine is I'm going to do Conan remote list, Conan remote remove BinCrafters. Yeah, so you also see repository. Yeah, I wonder why I can't find it. Maybe I got something wrong in the configuration, and it was falling back and finding it in my global configuration. So I've just removed that from my global configuration now, and I'm going to redo this and see if we can reproduce it. Of course, it's got it locally now. So I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to just quickly go over to... Thank you, by the way, Andres. This is exactly why I asked you to do this, because if it only works on my machine, then something isn't right. Let's see if it worked on Travis. So Travis says it failed. Excellent. So I should have perhaps relied on Travis rather than you, Andreas. All right, so we're going to take a detour from the std mutex stuff to get this working, because this is more important to me, which is sort of a little bit selfish. Talking of selfish, but if it only works on my computer, then we're in trouble. So all sorts of stuff. Trying Conan Center. Error. Clara. Maybe I have to put... Oh, that's interesting. Let me read the manual on Conan. Where is my Conan file CMake list here? So Conan and remote, name this, name that. You'd think it would just work, right? I should probably check to see if there is an updated version of the Conan.cmake. So we're going to go and look for Conan CMake, which is a project that I typically just steal and plonk directly in. So let's have a look at this. So first and foremost, before I get anywhere further, I'm just going to open that in another window and grab the latest one, because I know they work on this a lot. So I have no bones about this now. But ideally, I would want to... let me just... Yeah, can I do remove? Is that how I do it? Yeah, Clara... Star. Yes. Let's make sure that's not there. No matching. Okay, so now I should be able to reproduce this locally. So in my clipboard, I currently have the whole of the new version of do Jimmy Flip. There we go. Okay, now I can reproduce this locally. It says it can't find it in remotes. It said it trying with Conan Center. So why did you only try it with Conan Center? That's interesting, you know. I wonder if it's even able to find catch 2. Do I have to put an index in here as well? I know there's something to do with indexes. Right, one thing at a time. So inside my scripts, I have conan.cmake. I'm going to paste that in there. And yeah, things have changed. Conan and remote. Oh, look, this has actually changed. Haha. Ha. So it looks like they have fixed this. Because I can see changes in the very function to do with indexes. But it did not work. Okay, URL name. If define Conan index, kindex I Conan index. Otherwise, index 1. Index is optional. Okay, well, why don't we put this as index 1 and this is index 2 and see if that helps. But it's saying trying with Conan-Center. It looks like those Conan add remotes are not actually taking effect. It does find catch 2. Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Thank you, Andreas. So these don't appear to be working. Do I need to put your... Oh, you know what it's saying? The clue is in the name, isn't it? Look, here. Repository, and then there's empty parentheses. This is terrible, awful CMake syntax. Let's try that. Is it URL? Arguments URL. URL name and index are required. Let's see. Oh, adding. So at least now it's telling me the correct argument, right? Adding catch to remote repository that. BinCrafters remote repository that. Let's do remote list. Has it added it to my global list? No. I'm confused. This worked for me before. Let's add an index in there again and just sort of hope for the best. I'm really surprised that catch 2 worked then. Andreas, did it find catch 2 using the Conan Center? Did it find it in trying with Conan-Center? Let me search for catch 2. Because it makes me wonder if it's only finding it in one place and it's not actually looking in those remotes at all. See, it's Conan remote add that -F. You'd think that would just work, right? Oh dear. This is where the BinCrafters before Conan Center, I guess that's worth a go. That's a good try, good idea. No, apparently still not able to find it. Trying with Conan. It looks like it's just trying with Conan Center, and I don't know why it's trying. If I get rid of... Let's get rid of this for now. What do I get? Okay. So, obviously it's still not going to work, but it says from Conan Center. I see, it's getting it from Conan Center. So catch 2 has actually been published to the Conan Center, and that's how we're picking it up. So we don't actually need to grab it from this catch 2. So that's one thing. But BinCrafters ought to work. And it looks like this add remote isn't taking effect. So let's go and read the manual, shall we? And see if I'm misusing it. It's entirely possible I've been misusing it and it was working through fluke. Okay. Conan add remote. See, look, let's steal their exact example, because obviously one of the most useful things is to pick up their own repository. Oh, and then I have to go and put Conan file, put that back in. I'm going to have to ask in Slack, you know. Conan. So I'm actually going to bring, for rarity, I'm going to bring a chat client into a live stream, which is possibly the worst thing to do, right? So please nobody say anything too horrible to me. Live streaming using Conan CMake, having trouble with Conan add repository. Oh, I can't spell, but let me show you what let me paste in my CMake. But the remote apparently doesn't work. Any ideas? Right, well, we'll leave that to bake, and I will probably move that off the screen right now because I have no idea what things are going on. But this is how I have historically gotten some amazing support. The folks who use Conan are wonderful. Now, when I've used this in a work setting, I have like a whole script that sets up Conan, and as part of like the basic install of the computer. So when you get a computer set up, you know, and there's a sudo apt-get install of a very minimal set of things, but one of them is Conan and one of them is like pointed at my Conan server where I will put all the packages. Excuse me. So right now this is a bit of a pain, which is a shame. We will see, yeah. So before it looks like it was working by coincidence or surprise, which I don't like. I really don't like that. So basic setup, CMake targets. I wonder if I have to not do basic setup. So, I mean, I guess I should put some Conan check in here. It seems like a sensible thing to do. I mean, now I'm just like floundering, right? So what version of Conan have I got? Let's use that as a baseline. 1.14. I mean, now I'm just playing. Right, so I'm replying to the chat, and there was someone saying, "Hey, is it the remote's missing in the list?" Yeah, so that's weird. Okay, well that seems to have. Oh, that's. Wait a second, that just worked. Wait. Sorry, that is super odd. I need to go back to CMake here. Adding? Where did it say adding? Previously it said adding, but didn't seem to do anything. Alright, let me just do a Conan list here. Conan remote list and see if it was a global thing. Alright. I don't think CMake was caching anything there because it runs this CMake every time, but that's weird. Let me just see if I can reproduce it. Let me see if I can repro. So we're gonna wherever the thing is, get rid of the Conan check, leave the Conan add remote in there. I'm gonna do stop that. Stop you stop there. We're gonna do a Conan remote remove BinCrafters because we don't want that in my global settings right now. We are going to go to the Conan file. Oh no, now I'm going to do Conan remove Clara, yes, star. All right. Let's see if we can reproduce this then. So I'm going to click the refresh button inside CMake. All right, it seems to be working out, and I'm totally confused. You watch me, right? I didn't make it up. I mean, so yeah, no. Right, 1 second. How do I even know? I haven't got a link to this. How do I get a link to this stream? Once I've started. Oh, at the top there. See, unfortunately I have a small second monitor. So, but you can't rewind until I finish. Oh dear, so I'm actually linking in the chat channel where we are here, but that's super odd. They can at least have a look at, I guess, at this. Yeah, asking for help, as Luca is just saying, like the, yeah, Conan.txt, yeah, so maybe that was it. I mean, I don't think so, because it looks like it would run that every time it runs CMake. CMake will just shell out to this. Now, we did also upgrade the version of the Conan.CMake, but we did try it after that, right? I'm pretty certain we tried it after I did that, and we'll go back and look at the stream and see if we can work it out. But this appears to be working now. I'm happy to leave this Conan check in, because I think it makes sense anyway, just to get the right version of Conan. So we'll leave that in, and I guess the proof of the pudding, let's just see what we changed. So we updated, that's the Conan CMake changes. And then we're going to say ensure BinCrafters is installed, upgrade to latest Conan .CMake. So you can try. I'm going to commit this. I really want to get onto something more interesting, Andreas. But Alexander. Sorry. Oh no, it was Andreas. So you've got, from this distance and my terrible eyesight, I'm having difficult discriminating between your names. I'm so sorry. So I'm going to git push those. It didn't work on Travis, if you recall. Travis said that there was it had the same failure. So we're going to see if it works on Travis now. I've just git pushed it, and hopefully that will do the needful thing. Now I hope that we're not just getting more and more and more of these things. Not git remote, Conan remote list. Okay. Take it easy, Luca. Thank you for dropping in. So we have BinCrafters here, and everything seems to be working again. And we are... Where is my IDE? Oh, my IDE is there. And... Okay, we're building again on the remote site. Let's just see if this is working. So I've pushed it. Yes, thank you, Luca. Take care, mate. And oh, it's just booting up. We'll leave that going. So unfortunately, that was meant to be like a how cool is Conan. It didn't work out as quite as smoothly as I wanted it, but it's probably an issue on my side. Hopefully, we can work out what it is and we can come up with a clear way. Because when I normally do this kind of stuff, it's just lovely to use. Excuse me. A package manager where, just like other languages, you can drop in a new package. Like, you know, hey, I want Clara. So, hey, there's a repository that has Clara. I trust the repository. Let's go grab it from the repository, add it to my code, and you'll be running again with it within minutes. I mean, we've been going for, what, an hour and a bit, and we're running quickly out of time, unfortunately, before I have to disappear off. But you know, certainly that's usually my experience with Conan is it's super smooth and it just works, but apparently not quite today. So... I'm hoping that Andreas or Alexander, whoever... Oh, yeah, appears to work now here. Excellent. So there must have just been a bit of a moment where something wasn't quite right. Who knows? It is... it's working now, and that's really all I really am worried about. So if the Conan devs take a look at this and can work out what I did wrong, I'd be grateful if you could work out what was going on. And maybe I picked up a bug with the older version of the code that I had of this Conan.cmake code. It definitely looked like it changed in the area of the code that dealt with Conan add remote. There's a slight sort of bad taste in my mouth that we have to specify something globally in a single project. I can't just say, hey, no, for this project I want to use this. But I understand that the cache is like shared between everything. It'd be nice to not do that. But when I've set this up at work, I have this totally hermetically sealed so that like it has its own cache, it has its own setup, and we pointed at a different Conan configuration file so that it only runs with the thing that particular project needs. And that way I can have two projects that disagree about where they should find packages and everything still just works. But obviously that's not necessarily what everybody wants here. But we're working. So back to C++ for the next 15 minutes. So I was going to explain to you about the mutexes. So anyone interested in Conan stuff now, I'm done with that for now. We were talking about the thread safe queue and how that I naturally reach for std mutex and just use that. And that's great, right? So it's great if you're used to it, but let me go through my example here. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking the screen up into tiles that have an X begin and an X end and a Y begin and a Y end. And the reason that I did it into tiles like this and not just lines is that in an interactive view, which I'm sort of half planning for, I'd like to be able to update tiles at a time. And the other thing that I said I'd talk about later was this changing the way that renderpixel works, is that if we could do that iteratively, then we could actually just do like a few samples per pixel in a load of tiles and then go back afterwards and keep filling in detail. That way you can give feedback to the user pretty quickly. It'd be a grainy image to start with, but then it starts to refine as you give it more time. That would be cool. But at the moment we can't do that because we only do the averaging at the end. Whereas if we remembered how many samples we'd done per pixel, then we can average it at any time that we want. So anyway, we have our tile, and then I made a tile queue. And I'm just going to hide it for a second. And I'm saying, like, hey, the tile queue, we give it the width and the height of the screen and how much I want to chunk up. So here I'm doing it in 32 pixel by 32 pixel chunks. And that queue is thread safe. And so I'm going to make a worker function. This worker function is like another local function. And all it does is it says, while I can pop work off of the queue, and I'm given a tile. And so this is the way that I've done it, is I pass a lambda to pop. And the lambda is given the tile saying, yes, there was a tile for you to do. Here it is. And that gets around all that horrible stuff where I have to deal with returning either a tuple or an optional, something like that. Because I need to both communicate, is the queue empty, should I stop, and also, here is the thing if it isn't empty. So I've done it this way. There are many other ways of doing it. I guess an optional tile would be more straightforward. As we know, it's plain old data, it's not going to throw, all that kind of stuff. So that's my choice there. And I'm quite fond of passing lambdas to functions. So anyway, given a tile, the function to render a tile is just for y is tile y begin to y end, x is x begin. Yay! Oh, Travis is green. So Ulian, thank you. And I'm sorry for grabbing you panically in the middle of a live stream. Thank you for coming along, and also thank you for all the hard work you do on Conan. I love Conan, as you probably have picked up from all of my conversations with you over the last year and a bit actually. But I was hoping that it would just work so smoothly and seamlessly, but obviously didn't. Anyway, Conan thing's over. Shh. So we're outputting each pixel at that particular location, and then obviously we finish that, we go back to the while loop, and the while loop says, pick up the next tile. And in fact I might change that right now. It's really quite awkward for it to be returning a to pass a lambda in. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a worker. It just keeps pulling off tiles and rendering the tiles and then saying, oh, you've got anything else for me to do. Then we make as many threads as there are, have we been asked to, num CPUs, which is now wrong, isn't it? I'm going to call this num threads. Num threads. And in fact, I'm reserving it here, but I can actually, threads are default constructible, which I'd forgotten about. So I can actually make this num threads here as well. I'll get rid of that line there. Now it's resized and not reserved. And then here I can just do threads I equals std thread of that, I think. Let's just make sure I haven't gone completely daft. be nice to use something like std fill here, but obviously I can't fill with threads because I actually need a unique thread for each worker and not one thread copied multiple times, because one can't in general copy threads. So the threads pull off work, they then execute it, and then the main thread just says join them all the threads. And so the main thread's going to go to sleep, blocking on the first thing to complete, the 0 threads to complete. Then it'll block for the first thread, and then the second thread, and the third thread, until the end threads have all been blocked on, and then we're done. So that's great, but it does mean that this tile queue had to be written. Now, if you have suggestions for something other than this, I'd love to hear them. Because my tile queue has a mutex, and it has a vector of to-dos, and essentially when we do pop, we take out the mutex. If we're empty, we're done. Otherwise, we get the back one and pop it off, and so it's popping from the back. It does them backwards. It doesn't really matter what order we do these things in. Then now this got more sophisticated as I went on. I let go of the lock, because having removed the tile, it's uniquely ours. Std iota opportunity. It could be. Send me a snippet and I'll try it out. I'm not very good at std iota stuff. But then we unlock the lock on the queue. We call the function, and then when it's done, we can say, hey, that's now done. And I realize this is far too complicated. So I am going to change it. I'm going to change it right now, first and foremost, to be more sensible. So I'm going to make this return the std optional. And, I'm locking and unlocking. This is dreadful. So this is exactly why people say don't write your own threads and mutex stuff. So this is just going to be pop. We're just going to return that. Now, the progress we're going to do at the beginning. Now, that seems weird. But the reason I was doing the locking and unlocking is I didn't want multiple threads to come up with the to print out progress at the same time. So I thought, well, while I have the lock, I know I exclusively can determine how far through this process we are. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say, at the beginning of this all, I grab the lock, then I might as well print out progress. If I've made progress since the last time I printed out progress, print it out. Then if I'm empty, return. Thread, unlock, and then here we're just going to return tile. Oh, this is so much nicer. Alright, and now this is all horrible, but that's fine, because we're going to steal that inner loop bit here. There. Q.pop, we're going to say while auto tile is equal to Q.pop tile. And we should be able to do that, right? Oh, is this one of those things where even now we have to, like, I can't, is this a C++2A thing? Seriously, that's the worst. Ugh. Alright, this becomes a for loop then. Because it's basically, alright, forever auto tile equals q.pop. See, I was trying to do a C++17 style like if, where you can do if or initializer and then the condition, but I wasn't able to. If not tile break. And then I'm going to use paste. Yeah. And I'm going to say we're going to make this tile opt, and then just to make my code look nice equals star tile opt, because we know that it's there. Beautiful. Now I'm sure there are better ways of doing that too. Std generate. Yeah, separating the multithreaded queue from the tile aspect. Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but it has some notion of. I mean, it doesn't care. It's a tile queue. I could make a general purpose queue, but I still have to do all this progress nonsense as well, which it seems to be. It would make sense if I was designing this properly to do that. So someone's given me a std generate opportunity in there. See that. To me, this is where the no raw threads thing really hurts me, because that doesn't look any better to me. You know, the code that's been put in the chat would be significantly more typing, I think, than what I have here, which would be std generate threads.begin well, we'll try it out. We'll try it out for style. This is what this whole project is about. It's me learning begin threads.end. This relies on them being resized, which is okay. Then we need a little lambda here. And I need a comma, obviously, to separate that. And then this lambda is going to return std thread worker. That's not too bad. Oh, apparently... Oh, because I need to capture worker here. That's not dreadful, but it just makes me feel like I don't get it. I mean, like, should I use std for each for this 3 auto threads join? I don't know. I mean, ideally, I'd just let that go out of scope and let it block there, but yeah, it's... Let's give it a go. I mean, I didn't even check to see if the code that we've just reformatted makes sense, but I'm definitely warm to the idea that this is not really a tile queue. It doesn't need to be a tile queue. It could be a queue of anything, right? As long as that thing never throws an exception. Also, the tile queue has the logic for determining how to chunk up the tiles and deal with the fact that like 32 doesn't necessarily count into the size that we're in. So it is a tile queue. It could use this tile queue could use a thread-safe vector of tiles internally, but then the lock would have to. I don't know. It seems like that this is a decent amount of stuff thrown in together. But as you can tell from the tone of my voice, I'm still on the fence. It hasn't convinced me totally. All right, let's just see if this is going to work. See where we are, because if there are new people that join, like if Ulian is still, and I apologise, Ulian, if I'm saying your name, Ulian? You've not actually even seen this beautiful picture that we're generating every time I run my code. It may not even work now. We're probably going to end up with a black screen. Okay, are we ready? Hooray! There it is. We have some sort of progress. So this is all well and good, but it is very traditional. My attempt to the way that I would normally write this. So let's do git commit -m, and this is refactor threading. Okay, but this is the traditional threading style. I'm going to git push that just to get some idea of if we're on the right track or not. So, in the remaining 5 minutes that I have, maybe a bit longer, we'll see if when my wife actually comes back across from the road, she's at the school opposite, being like a substitute librarian right now, helping put the books back on shelves. There is another way to do this, using std async and futures and things like that. So we could, instead of having this tile queue and all of this good stuff here that I've done, we would steal this loop here, and for each of these to-dos, we would make a future. Then those futures would go off and asynchronously do their magical thing. Now, the problem that I have with that is that I want to be able to control how many of those are running concurrently, and I don't know if I can do that with C++ futures. So let's go and have a look. And then we have to wait for them in some way as well. You know, this is not... Okay, and std async, std package task. That sounds pretty cool. Or std promise. So we could definitely rephrase what we currently have in terms of promises, I think. So let's have a look at std async and std package task. And if anybody has some kind of idea about what is the right way to do this in the chat, then that would be great. Because my concern with this is that we could generate like n futures, where n is the number that we want to have running concurrently, and then I can send those off and run them with std async and hope that they actually run asynchronously and not serially. But then how would I know when to start the next future to keep n of them running? When I was sort of brainstorming this with Jason, the best thing I could come up with was either one thread has to just keep striping through and say, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? And then if one of them says yes, they say, okay, cool, get the results, and then make a new one until we run out. Or you just block on the first one, and when it's finished, you make a new one, and then you block on the second one and whatever, which just means that unfortunately, if the first one the first future you block on is just a really, really slow one. The other threads could all finish and be idle, but you wouldn't be able to. But they wouldn't be giving you work. Yeah, this is what Sean Thread's thread pool is doing. Yeah, so that was exactly what Sean parent, because I think this is around. I wonder if this is in Conan. Yes, ST Lab. This is a PDF. What I would like to see is. So, Jason sent me something. And is there a URL for it? How about just create end threads and have queues in there? That's what I'm doing right now. That's exactly what that code is. Well, I don't have queues in there. I have one global queue and end threads. Now, so in general, so the Mr. Fox said, how about create end threads and have queues in there? So then I'd have to decide ahead of time, before I'd even run anything, what work each thread would do. And if I randomly assign work, that probably would be okay, probably. But if one thread got all of the slow to render tiles because they had like mirrors, or it had some other weird thing that took a long, long, long time to render, then you're not making effective use. You could allow, like, let's say you got 4 threads. 3 of your threads could finish and you do all of the work that they had, and then they would be idle while your one thread is still going slow and had tons of work to do. So that's why it's nice to have a global thread, a global queue of work, and have the threads just pull work from them when they're done. It makes it more balanced. Yeah, so this is it. So I'm trying to not, I admit I've just pulled in obviously Clara, but I am trying to do stuff in the C++y way. So I don't know where now you're hearing me flounder about the way I wanted this to work, and I guess I don't know. So a package task invoked asynchronously. Yeah, this doesn't seem like what I want. And stood async, I don't think I have the control over how. Deferred, work stealing is, it's not even work stealing. In my case, I'm not work stealing. It's not like I've given work to each thread and then they're stealing from each other when they're like, well, I'm finished. Have you got anything to do? Yeah. It's just like we have one list, which means they all block on that mutex. So all we get is async or deferred. Bleh. A new thread is launched to execute. See, this is terrible. This is the worst. This is where I get annoyed at that. All right, I am done with this, I think, mainly because we're running out of time here, and I just don't think this is too bad. I think it's pretty clear that this is the only function. This pop function here is the only thing in my whole code base that needs to know about a mutex, and it's an optional of something which can not throw. So let's at least do that. So let's make sure that this is no throw. Why my brain's I've just had a massive brain fart on this. Let's go and look at Vec3. I know I've done it in there. No except. Oh golly. So no except. And if I had so this is kind of a clue to say, like, this thing won't throw. And it would be an error if well, no, I guess it's not an error, is it? It just terminates. That makes me feel a little bit better, because the trick about this is. No, there isn't a trick. It's more to do with the optional tile. I think that works. I don't think I need to say that, but I think that makes sense. And we can certainly have it. Doesn't hurt me any to put no except on these things. It being a struct rather than a class. Let's make it a class. Just for hygiene reasons. I don't really have a shared area to put code in, which is why I'm dumping all this code in the main function right now. But I'm going to at least change all these things to be my convention for what's it called, for member variables that are in a hidden away. Come on the IDE. So we could do some level of extraction here. I guess I'm now warming to some of the suggestions that you've been making in the chat, and I appreciate this. It keeps me honest. Oh, to do underscore. There, like that. So this could easily be extracted into some nice little testable classes. So let's think about that in the short amount of time that I have remaining. I think that first and foremost, this. this tile queue now is doing the kind of thing that I would like it to do, and it's in the way that I'd like it to be doing. Now this algorithm here for generating like the to-do is a separable algorithm. I think we'll all agree, and it's not dependent on anything. This is kind of like again, it's like a generate type function. So I'm wondering if we can just phrase this nicely. Is there a nicer way to phrase this? Yeah. Because this is always like that std generate thing. And I see, again, I would like to get rid of raw loops. And I maybe just don't have the wherewithal to look at that and see trivially how one would turn this nested set of loops into some sort of STL algorithms. Yeah, I'm missing that, but this is definitely separable and testable externally. It doesn't have to be here. We could make a little... So the way that I would immediately think of like testing this or making it testable is I would extract that into a static method or something like this. So let's just see, let's sketch out something and say, you know, generate tiles. And this is going to take all these parameters here. And we're going to make it a template type name F. And we're going to, oh, that's too many of those. And more importantly, we're going to have F and func. And then we're going to steal all of that for now. And this now just becomes func of those things. Func of those things. And you are complaining why templates cannot be declared inside of a local class. This is this is the punishment I get for writing this stuff in one place. So let's take that out for now and just put it up in the anonymous namespace at the top of this class, and then we'll extract it somewhere nice in a second. Okay, reformat the world. Are we happy now? No, we're still angry. Vector of tile to do. All right, because we don't know what a tile is. Let's go and get a tile. Okay, tile, you get to become a first-class citizen too. Are we happy now? We're happy now. Lovely. So tile queue does not initialize these things to do. It certainly does. I think you'll find it does. Hello, IDE. Now you're happy. Okay. So now inside the tile queue, we can just run generate tiles with a we function, which is obviously going to do the to do in place back, and this is going to take x begin. End. I mean, I guess this could just take the damn tile, couldn't it? That's what if this is so tied to tiles, I guess I suppose this doesn't necessarily have to be. I guess it doesn't have to be wed to tiles at this point. We're sort of moving away from tiles. So, so I don't know. All right. Well, we're going with this. X begin. Oh golly. X end. Int y begin. Int y end. Squiggle squiggle. Comma. Width. Height. X size. Y size. And then inside this lambda, we're going to do to-do dot in place back. God darn it. Back. Tile of this stuff. Too lazy to type it in again. Generate files. Oh, yeah, not files, tiles. And let's reformat it and see what the anger is about here. No matching function call to that candidate expects an L value for the first argument. Oh, because 2 ampersands. Haha. Splendid. And now you are complaining because this cannot be... Oh, well, there's a new one on me. Ha! I have not seen that before. So it's complaining that we can't implicitly capture the this pointer because in the constructor, presumably... Oh, I thought maybe it was just complaining, but anyway, right. That works. I don't like this. I don't like this very much, but this could be testable in a relatively straightforward way, I guess. But at that point, you might as well just return the damn vector of tiles, you know, rather than passing this function nonsense. Yeah, we're going to make this return. This is far too clever for its own good. Oh, I'm half looking out for my wife. So, I'm going to do that. That can go there. That becomes to do, and then we steal this, and this goes here. To do, and then we're going to return to do, and we're going to rename to do to be tiles, because this is not to do necessarily at this point. Come on, it's not that hard. It is hard, I know it's very hard. Alright, and now this means that this whole function can be written here. We can go, if we switch these around, we're going to say to do comes from generate tiles of width, height, x size, y size, and then because of the ordering we guarantee, we know that we can just make this to do dot size, and this pleases me. Or at least it will do when I get rid of all the errors that are currently. What am I missing here? Oh, I'm missing a closing parenthesis here. Okay, and you are not... There we go, alright. Apparently everything is groovy with that. So that's maybe better? I don't know. It's certainly nicer that the constructor is now written in terms of things that... Oh, haha, that's why the IDE was so angry. Now we're cooking. Alright. Now this is testable without me constructing a tile queue and all the baggage that comes with it. So this could be a standalone free function I can go and write tests for, which was nice. And it returns a vector of things that I can just look through. The tile queue then becomes less attached to the work of the generation. It is relying on something which is independently tested. And its responsibilities are these two things. This progress stuff, which is weird. So let's go and make that a thing. All right, I think that makes sense. So I'm going to make a class progressifier, and I'm sure there's a boost thing for this because it rings a bell that there is such a thing. Double last progress. Oinks. Uh-oh, there are people chatting in the compiler explorer thingy-majig. And we'll make this explicit. Explicit progressifier double min progress equals 0.5. What have I got there? 5. Oh, 5. Percent equals 5. And if I could type, it would help, wouldn't it? So we're going to do min progress piece. Let's just call it progress. I mean, this is all in percent. Double min progress. Might as well initialize it there, even though I'm going to definitely overwrite it here. And then we'll just have a void operator. Void update double progress. And this is going to do... Oh, I wonder, we can potentially extract this. So at this point I could just use an SDQ. Well, SDQs are not thread safe, and an SDQ is just a wrapper over a vector to make it have a push and pop, right? And then it doesn't have an optional pop. So I don't think I could just use an SDQ. I could use one internally, but I don't think it buys me anything. Maybe I'm forgetting something about stdq, but my understanding is it's an adapter over a base data type, which is usually a paper. Sorry, I read the word paper then. Yeah, it uses a stdec under the queue, under the head, but I don't know it would buy me anything. I'm using a vector and I'm pushing off and popping off the back of it. But thank you for the suggestion. This is always good to be challenged on these things, and I'm not certain about it. A wrapper on deck. Thank you, Jason. So what was I doing here? I was going to make this have... And now I'm wondering, actually, if instead of having this progressy stuff here, I think I'm going to make that... we're going to have size t num work. There we go. That makes more sense. Size t num work underscore min progress is that. That is more like the important thing. So let's make num work num work. I don't even know why I'm making this configurable. I'm never going to use it. Oh, I will at least keep the variable. Let's keep the variable. And we can always add the thing to change it later. Okay, so we update, and we're just going to have size t num done. Min progress does not need to be initialized here. Thank you. Thank you for your time. All right, and this will complain because it needs to be 5.0 because parens. All right, are we good there? Yes, num done. So now I can move some of this work into here. Yay. And that becomes a progressifier, progress, squiggle. We don't have to remember num tiles anymore because that's going to be something that's going to go into the progressifier. So this just becomes progress. And then we're just going to do progress.update. And then here is where we're going to pass in the current to-do.size. I could wrap the queue in a lockable. Yeah, exactly. But if I make the queue itself lockable, it needs to, first of all, it needs to be able to return an optional, because if the queue is empty, I need it to be atomic between me checking the queue's emptiness or not and or returning the object. So that's something that's hard to achieve with a traditional queue. The second thing is that the lockable thing doesn't exist as such, and I'd have to build it, which is cool. I could definitely do that, and I would like to do that. But I think that and also we need to do this progress update that needs to be done while the lock is held. So effectively what I'm using the lock for is for multiple things. I'm taking out the lock which says I currently can have a canonical global view of how much work there is left and what the status of that remaining work is. So I can update the progress view at that point. I can, it's fair to say I can look at how much work there is to do and how much has been done thus far. And so I can print out a notice if it's changed. I can then say, well, if we're empty, we're finished. And if we're not empty, I can mutate the structure, get the object out, and then return it to the caller so that they can go away and do their work without the lock held anymore. So I think that covers it, whereas just making things lockable is great. It has that kind of feel of like the sprinkling the word synchronized in Java code, where people put synchronized in and they don't necessarily think about the fact that oftentimes there are sets of things that need to be held true together, and you need the same lock held to look at like three pieces of information rather than just pointing in and saying, well, it's thread safe while I go and get how big the queue is. That kind of stuff. So let me go and finish what I'm talking about here so that I actually have something done. Num work times 100. Excuse me. And I don't like the fact that we're using printf in there still, for what it's worth. So I'm going to change that in a second. But I wanted to see if we're even in a place here. Now, we've almost got something which is general case here. So this becomes a queue of things to do, like a to-do queue. It doesn't necessarily need to be based off of a tile anymore. So that, I think that was what we were talking about originally, right? Was like a work queue. So I can rename this work queue and parameterize it on tile, and as long as we give it a vector of tiles, a vector of work, now this becomes a general thing. So that's kind of nice. I like that. So everything's still working, everything's still executing. That is good. Min progress. Oh, because I'm not actually using it. Thank you, IDE. This is where IDEs are nice. So if the progress is greater than the last amount, well, I guess that should be or equal to, right? Then we're going to printf that. Okay, that's exactly the kind of thing that if I was making this testable, which was a kind of my mental mental thing, God, listen to me, my mental processes that I was going through, then here we'd have some kind of function that the test harness could use to say, hey, did you give me progress? Yes, you did. Excellent. So that's updating there. So let's call this work queue. Work queue. Uh-oh, I'm about to run out of time. So you can see where I'm going. If I have to stop abruptly, I apologize. But I've promised my wife, and I've been looking forward to going out, so that's what it is. But now we're going to make this, I'm going to do this turbo. So if I stop talking, then hopefully you're just following along with what I'm going. So this is work item. I can't remember whose suggestion it was to like make this less tiley, but thank you, this is much better. So now this is going to take a stood vector work item to do, and the to do is going to be stood move of to do, and then this becomes stood optional work item pop, and this is so much better. I love it. I love this very much. Okay, so now we need to, down where we actually instantiate the work queue, this now becomes make, what do we call it? Make tiles, generate tiles, yay, of all of that nonsense there, and this becomes a work queue of tile. And I'm surprised that was as straightforward as it was. I'll be even more surprised if this works. Now, if I was doing this properly, if I was at work and not running out of time, then these things would immediately be extracted into, well, they should have been originally written in header files, not just plonked into main.cpp there. And I would have written some tests for them. And, you know, like, oh, there's something I need to fix. This needs to be explicit because it's no except. That's no except. This progressifier I should probably mark as no except as well. I think it makes sense for it to not try and throw exceptions in a progress thing, even if printf doesn't throw exceptions, obviously. I haven't yet come up with a decent discipline for what should be no except. I know everyone says to put it in everywhere. I mean, okay, I guess. This generate tiles, for example, doesn't seem to be like it could. I mean, I could make it mark it as no except. I don't see it would help. It's not immediately clear to me. Anyway, where are we? Let's first of all, we've made some changes in main.cpp. These are ripe for extraction. The only reason I'm not extracting them is I don't currently have a library place to put them. So, I guess they could just live in the header actually, in the top. I can't believe I've got main and it's not in source. Well, that's daft. Yes. All right. I'm going to just put them in a header file here. Oh. So I think progressifier can be extracted. I think is that Shift F6? Shift F5? There's a key somewhere. Move. Refactor. Move. Oh, just F6. Has no members to move. Ah, oh, well, tough. All right. Source. Yeah, I'm thinking, am I going to just put these in the header, in the... I don't like things. I don't like the fact the main, I've noticed, is up here. This should be moved too. So, alright. One thing at a time. Moving main into source. What? You won't let me? Why? Hello? Apparently won't let me move main into source. Maybe because it's mentioned in the CMake list here. So let's make a new directory, and we're going to call in source, and this is just going to be. I really am in borrowed time now. Isn't all graphics code supposed to disable exceptions away? I mean, it's only all games code. I mean, I usually had that all turned off, but you know, It's more about the experience here, the journey. So this is PT3 ways, and I guess we're going to call this actually a main directory. And then this is just going to be rename. Yes, main.cpp in main. That's horrible, isn't it? Good for you. Now, you... Alright, I'm out of time. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to move that out and extract a few bits and pieces and probably write some tests. That's sort of where I will leave that for now. And if you check back in an hour or two, or maybe a bit longer than that, you'll probably see that I've done that. So anyway, this has been lots of fun. Thank you for all the ideas and things. I'm sorry we didn't get to do the threading the way that I wanted to do, but you've seen some of the refactoring stuff that I do. And I hope to catch you another time. Again, I don't know when I'll be doing these. Oh, my phone's ringing now is when it's all going. Oh, people ring me. But I will hopefully see you on evening time if I get a chance to do this again. But thank you, everybody, for being here. So I will see you another time. Bye, everyone. Right, cue awkward me trying to find the turn it off button. In stream. Yes, okay, we're done now. So thanks again.